Hey you, and welcome. My name is Mike, and in this old video, we are gonna take a look at a plot that truly is like stranger than fiction. Almost hilariously so, if there wasn't, it's like a flesh-eating poison in it.
Quan, you might as well just stay standing for us if you don't mind, please.
This is one of those stories where, if it was written in a book, you'd hand it back, saying it was full of shite. And in Newcastle, England, someone most certainly was. And he sort of injected it into another person. It's a whole thing, but before we get into it, please subscribe to see new videos every single week. Now, let's give it a go. Newcastle, England is the setting for today's story. A city of, over a little more than 300,000 people. And the setting for, now that I think about it, I think it's the setting for like a few past chapters that we talked about. It's a city which speaks for itself in a Geordie accent. And it's where one Thomas Quan visited one day in late January 2024. He was visiting a house on St. Thomas Street, a house where his mother, Jenny Lung, lived there with her partner, a man named Patrick O'Hara. No relation. He was visiting that January 22nd to perform a routine health check. See, young Thomas Quan, he was a doctor if you can believe that, and so he was there, checking out their blood pressure, giving them a once over, and he was also there to give him an COVID booster jab. He was in his mother and, her partner's house for approximately 40 minutes, yapping away about this and that, sure, you know yourself, and then gives Patrick the injection, and then he's right. I'm off. Gotta hit the bricks. Almost immediately, however, after Patrick was injected, he was in a absolute metric shit ton of pain. The area around the injection site was all like blistered, inflamed. See, the thing was, although it was Thomas that day who visited his mother and her partner Pat, they didn't know it was Thomas. He was in disguise, quite possibly one of the funniest disguises we've ever seen, and you can bet your ass that was not no booster vaccine injection he was getting. It was pure poison. How about we get to the who, what, why, and the rest of them. In 2024, Thomas Quan was 53 years of age, but he wasn't always so, if you can imagine. Thomas was born in Hong Kong to his mom, Jenny, and his father. However, at a mere 13 years of age, he left the place to attend boarding school in England, and he would later study medicine in Newcastle itself, his family later following him over. But Thomas would be quite lonely and a little estranged from his parents and siblings. Thomas would go on and become very successful. He had a nice house in Sunderland where he worked as a GP, he was married, had a kid. So, within the family he created, nothing better, but within the family he was born into, could be a lot better. Nothing worse. See, Thomas always had a very difficult relationship with his mom, Jenny. He always felt that she never gave him enough, or as much affection and love as a mother as she did to his own siblings. Thomas's relationship with his mother was something which only got worse when, what a play. She was married, obviously, to Thomas's dad. What she did was she withdrew £1 million from her and her husband's joint bank account. It's a lot of money. And then what she did, she forced him to divorce her. Then, not long after, the father, her husband, passes away. And he leaves not much of an inheritance because Jenny took all the money. Thomas had been excited for that money and was not too keen on that. And then guess what? He was even less keen when what little his father did have when he passed, the majority of that went to Thomas's younger brother. Now, I believe in Chinese culture, this is what the research said, is that when the parent dies, rather than, the inheritance being distributed equally, as you find in a lot of places, in China and places like that, the eldest son, they get most of it, and then it kind of rolls downhill from there. So Thomas very much felt like he got fucked. So Thomas, fuming that not only did he not get what he had expected because his mother took it all, it's also was seen as almost disrespectful that his younger brother got more than he did. His younger brother, who hadn't been sent away for boarding school, who had spent more time with his parents, who had gotten more love and affection from their mother. Well, that just won't do. It's strange, Thomas became a very successful doctor, should be making pounds for days. And he was. But he was still described as greedy, and it's almost like the money was symbolic of his rage against his own family for excluding him, sending him away and showing preferential treatment to his siblings they kept around. In a letter Thomas sent to his mother in January 2022, he was accusing her of, stealing money from him, stealing money from the family, stealing his inheritance, the $1 million she withdrew from the joint bank account, so that when his dad died, didn't have an arse in his trousers. By this stage, Jenny was living in Newcastle with her new partner of many years, Patrick O'Hara. You say I am selfish or greedy, but I would like you to make me the sole executor of your will, as well as giving me the most and largest portion of the properties and inheritance. As you have told me many times, I'm the one you love the most out of all children. See, in her will, and Jenny getting a little bit on in years now, Thomas, her oldest son, was 53. But in her will, Jenny was going to leave the house in Newcastle where she lived to her partner, Patrick. Now, the house wasn't going to be Patrick's. It's not like he was going to get it, but he was going to basically have the rights to live in it for as long as he lived. And Patrick was like in his 60s, late 60s at this point. There's that French woman. She lived to be 122. Who knows how long Patrick could keep going for. So Thomas, feeling like he was screwed out of his dad's inheritance, he was going to make sure he got every single dime out of his mom's. He was licking his chops at the prospect of her kicking the bucket. And then in November 2022, he barged into that house in Newcastle, pushed past Patrick and began accusing his mom, demanding money now, give me money. To the extent the police were actually called, and that was kind of like the final nail in the coffin between Thomas and his mom, Jennifer. After this event, they never really spoke again. They didn't really have any kind of communications, or it was kept to an absolute minimum. Now, what Thomas thought of Patrick? Probably not much. He just saw him as one more wall between himself and all those dineros, all that cheddar cheese he was dying to get. Or at least, he was going to make sure somebody else was dying so he could get that money. See, little did Jenny know that her beautiful little baby boy, he'd given her a laptop all the way back in 2020. Given his mom a laptop. What a great son. But Jenny didn't know that Thomas, giving his mom this laptop, had installed spyware, so he could basically monitor all of their financial transactions, and he'd also given himself access to the webcam. So he was literally spying on his mom and her partner. Some man for one man. And so Thomas began planning, setting it in motion 1 year after he pushed into his mom's house demanding he inherit her shit. That was November 2023. Early in that month, Patrick O'Hara received a letter from a group called the Community Associated Nursing Team, a local group looking out for the L fellas in the area, an NHS, National Health Service, the British healthcare body, initiative. This letter was from a Raj Patel, and it stated that, Patrick, my man, it's time for a community home visit. I, Mr. Patel, will pop over, to your house. I'll tell you when, check out your vitals, check your blood pressure, check you're all, good to go. Give you some, seasonal booster jabs, seasonal vaccinations, a COVID booster. Just make sure you're good to go. And, Patrick got this letter. Happy days, for an elf fella, you don't have to be going to the doctor all the time. Yeah, pop over, give me all this stuff. That's amazing. A little while later, then Patrick got a second letter, basically confirming the first letter. And then a couple of months later, in early January 2024, Patrick got a third letter. This time was confirming the time and the date of this, when the doctor would pop over and do all these bits and yada, yada, yada. It was dated for January 22nd, a Monday, between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. The letter looked legit. Was it? It was shit. Neither the Community Associated Nursing Team nor Raj Patel existed. In the meantime, Thomas checked into a Premier Inn in Newcastle for the night on Sunday, January 21st. He'd been there a week earlier with his wife and found it suitable to begin enacting his revenge. He did not book it under his own name, as you can imagine, nor his own address. So Thomas checks into the hotel the night before Patrick's appointment, and then sends Patrick a text from a burner phone. Don't forget tomorrow morning, Raj Patel's got something for you. look forward to it. The next morning, after having a nice, lovely breakfast, Thomas, he's thinking to himself, right? I am going to my mom and her partner's house, but they can't know it's me. He goes through the extreme lengths, the cosmetics, out of this world, of getting the world's shittiest beard, mustache, and wig. He also used makeup to make his skin darker, then took this selfie to create an ID he would have for Raj Patel. Incredible stuff. Jeez, you never know it was him. He then left the hotel, walked to St. Thomas Street, where his mom and Patrick lived, knocked on the door, says, "How are you? I'm Raj Patel." Although he probably didn't sound like that because he also knew they'll recognize my voice. So he spoke English, like broken English, to them, did like some really shitty accent. Patrick opens the door. "Come on in, let's do this thing." He took Patrick's blood pressure, had him do like a healthcare questionnaire. Jennifer, his mom, even comes in. He takes her blood pressure. They do not realize it is Thomas. He would be in there for 40 minutes, yapping away in their faces, taking their blood pressure, giving them injections, and all the while they were like, yeah, classic Raj. It was then he administered a booster shot to Patrick. Patrick was there, inject me, shooting his shit like as usual, but he would say that upon receiving this injection, he was like, straight up, as soon as it like entered him, he was in immense, severe pain, stinging pain from where he'd received this jab. He says to Raj, "What's the crack? What's this about?" Raj says, "Oh, don't worry about it, it's just the usual COVID, whatchamacallit. You're probably experiencing some allergic reaction to the injection. You'll walk it off, you'll be fine." And then like Raj very quickly starts kind of like putting his stuff away, like he was happy, calm, collected, chilling around the place. And then as soon as he injected Patrick, he's like, "Well, gotta go. Whoa, look at the time." Making a hasty exit, stage left. But as Raj was walking out the door, his mom, Jenny, just so happens to come down the stairs, which were in the hall. Raj walks by her, and then Jenny says, "You know what? You're the same height as my son." Isn't that weird? Patrick, in the meantime, back in the living room, is looking at his arm and thinking, wow, this looks like Chernobyl. He's thinking, oh balls, something is not right here. His gears are grinding at this point, and he's thinking to himself, something is not right. He runs out of the house after Raj, but by this stage, Raj is gone. It's like the end of The Usual Suspects. The disguise is thrown away, gone with the wind. Patrick was now left with flesh-eating bacteria in his arm and would soon pass away if he didn't, immediately go to the hospital. And he went to the hospital, the emergency room, saying, "This isn't normal." The staff at the hospital say, "I think you're just probably having some kind of allergic reaction. Here's some antibiotics, go, you'll be fine. Have a cup of tea, you'll be grand." Then 2 days later, he goes back again. By this stage, Patrick was in immense pain. Some of the flesh on his arm had started dying. He was diagnosed with necrotizing fasciitis, and he had to have pieces of his arm removed. He would survive after numerous rounds of surgery, but was scarred for a life. His partner's son had injected him with some kind of mystery substance, and his arm had nearly rotted off. The doctors were absolutely baffled by what this was, but it wouldn't be until Thomas was actually tracked down that they would get an answer to that. When Patrick was admitted, he showed the hospital staff the letters he had been sent. Almost immediately, the staff called bullshit on those letters. They were not legit NHS letters. The police were informed, and tracking Raj via CCTV in Newcastle, they were able, in fact, to follow him to his very home in Sunderland. On February 5th, 2024, 2 weeks after he tried to murder Patrick, he was arrested.
Hello there. Sorry at this time in the morning. Is it Dr. Quan? Yes. Dr. Quan, hello. From Northumberland Police. Do you mind if I come in for a second, please? Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Are you happy to talk in here?
Yeah.
So, Quan, you might as well just stay standing for us if you don't mind, please. The time is now 06:30 hours, okay? I'm arresting you for the offence of the suspicion of the attempted murder and administering a poison or noxious substance, contrary to Section 23 of the Offences Against the Persons Act 1861. Now, both of those offences occurred in Newcastle upon Tyne on Monday the 22nd of January 2024, okay? So you don't have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention when questioned something which you'll later rely on in court. Anything you do say may be given as evidence. So again, you're now under arrest on suspicion of those offences, okay? Do you understand that?
A search of his home revealed the extent of his plan and his obsession with poison. He had been thorough in his research. The police found liquid mercury, thallium, sulfuric acid, arsenic. Thomas had even made ricin, which I only know about ricin from Breaking Bad. But all I know is it's not something you want to stir into your coffee, which is what happens in Breaking Bad. He wanted these substances to such an extent, he created a shell company to purchase them. He had a library of various poisons. In fact, the booster jab wasn't the only thing he considered. He had written documents planning on lacing Patrick's drink and food with poison, but decided, ultimately, on killing in plain sight. It seems that Thomas injected Patrick with iodomethane, a colorless liquid mainly used as a pesticide. But of course, in high doses, it's extremely toxic. Patrick was lucky to escape with his life. They found iodomethane in Thomas's home, in syringes, along with videos showing, well, yeah, how to make it. The plan? Murder your mom's partner so all the inheritance goes to you, and then probably she would soon be next with another random COVID jab. It was a revenge and greed. Pure and simple. And a damn near good have worked too. If it wasn't probably one of the stupidest plots I've ever covered. Top 3, at least. You know, all I could think about during this story is the kinda similar case of Xuming Lee out of Tampa, Florida. Umar Abdullah lived in an apartment building there with his family, and neighbor, Xuming Lee, had been making noise complaints about him and his family, they had a couple of months old baby, non-stop. According to Umar, it was ridiculous. Xuming was complaining about vacuum cleaners, toilet seats closing, doors being shut, and they did their best to quieten down, but not enough for Mr. Lee, it appears. Then, in May of 2023, Umar and his family, they noticed a weird chemical smell inside their apartment. And over the next few days, it got so bad that himself and his family began experiencing breathing difficulties, hair loss, headaches, and burning eyes. It even made their couple of months old daughter vomit. It got so bad that Umar hid a camera outside his front door to try and identify what the source of this noxious odor actually was. See, Xuming Lee was enrolled in a PhD program at the University of South Florida. The subject? Chemistry, of course, so it was pretty horrifying to see Xuming Lee on 2 separate occasions using a syringe to inject some mysterious substance under Umar's apartment door. I guess he felt his noise complaints weren't being taken seriously enough. What the substance was, no one is exactly sure, but it did contain methadone and hydrocone, but neither would give the symptoms experienced. So there must have been a little extra surprise in there, fresh from Xuming. Xuming Lee was arrested, charged with possession of a controlled substance, battery, and aggravated stalking, and to all of those he pleaded not guilty. He was later deported back to China, so it's unlikely there will be any further action in this case, but yet again we have a case of a man injecting mysterious substances into people who were just in his way, bothering him, just wanted to get rid of. Both of these guys would be, I guess, described as pretty intelligent. One was a doctor, the other studying his PhD to become a doctor, but both ultimately were pretty stupid, as the plan was dumb and they were caught real quick.
On Facebook when I was like, oh my god, that's my doctor, and I literally only saw him on the Thursday, and then that all come out on the Monday, and I just couldn't believe that he would actually do that to a family member.
Wow, that video doesn't look at him at all.
So he
only by the eyes is only how I can recognise him. The rest of him doesn't look at him at all.
And how does it feel to know that that's your doctor?
Yeah, absolutely terrifying.
In late 2024, Thomas Quan pleaded guilty to attempted murder, and for that, he was sentenced to 31 years in prison. He will have to serve a minimum of 20 before he can be considered for parole, which means that by the time he can be released, at the very earliest, he will be in his mid-70s.
Thomas Kwan went to highly unusual lengths in his attempts to kill his mother's partner while avoiding detection. Over several months, he obsessively planned a way of gaining access to his victim, which involved the use of counterfeit documents, a shell company, and elaborate disguises to obscure the potentially lethal role he was to play in these events. While the attempt on the victim's life was thankfully unsuccessful, the effects were still catastrophic.
And Sinead, that, my friends, is the story of Thomas Quan, a man who felt betrayed by his parents, his mother, and would do anything. And I mean anything. And when I say I mean anything, I mean literally the dumbest shit imaginable to remove those obstacles in his way to... Jenny and Patrick, they would later split. I mean, I guess it's not easy to stay with somebody whose son tried to murder you with flesh-eating bacteria. And I'm presuming she wrote Thomas out of her will, or at least I'm hoping that she had the foresight to do that, because how this costume worked on not only her, but her partner is insane and some of the stupidest shit I'll ever hear. It's unbelievable. Almost as unbelievable as this entire plot was dumb. Thank you so much for watching. It really means the absolute world to me that you're here watching this whole video. Happy holidays and Merry Christmas to each and every one of you. I hope you get, I don't know, something from Santa or, you know, whatever. Or just hope have a good time. Spend it with doing whatever you want to do or with people that mean a lot to you. You guys make my year and my Christmas every year just by being here watching these little videos and supporting the love. It's always been amazing. So I'll never be able to thank each and every one of you enough. So I'll just say thank you again. Thank you. As always, you can check out the That Chapter Patreon, where for $2 a month you get early access to every single video, and also there's a playlist of Patreon exclusive videos. You can check out the merch down below, or you can check out the That Chapter podcast, which has a brand new podcast exclusive episode every single Monday morning. But until the next one, which will be up, I don't know, at least every Tuesday, please take care of each other, please take care of yourselves, because I love you. Mike out.